So this is our first batch of 2025 birds. Carmine Browns is the breed that we chose this year. And it's kind of a funny story because when we first bought this property 5 years ago, the prior owners raised a bunch of birds. So we had a lot of the structures and the different things. Certainly there was a heritage here. And it was, of course, the start of the pandemic in 2020. And so everything got shut down that very first weekend that we owned the place. So Dominica said that, we need to get birds pretty much first before we do anything else. I think it was the blueberry bushes from her friend that she rescued one Sunday, and then getting chickens. Well, because it was the pandemic, all the little chick store, that they sell at the feed stores and different things every spring, they were all out and they were all booked, and we didn't really know that you could buy them on the internet at that point. And so Dominica, I don't know, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, wherever, found a collection of, we'll call them dent and ding chickens, that needed to be rehomed. I think we picked up some at a, house in like Snohomish, and then she went, I don't know, who knows, but we ended up with dog crates and boxes of chickens in the back of the car, and that was our very first flock. We didn't know anything about the breeds, but they did start laying eggs, and so once we had our very first farm egg, we have not wanted to go back to doing that again. So as you can see in this particular batch, we received initially 22 chickens. We had one click over in the first couple of days, which I guess the rule of thumb is about 10% you lose, something like that. So usually the hatcheries will send an extra bird. So I think we paid for 21 and they sent 22 and we lost one. So it kind of worked out. So these are going to be our layers. One of the other funny things that we experienced on the farm was, of course, this idea of diversity in birds. So we got all kinds of breeds a couple of times. In fact, the very first batch of layers that we bought, we got, I don't know, like say 4 or 5 different breeds. You learn a lot about the breeds and what their characteristics are and their personalities and things. Dominica got frustrated with a few of them. We all did. Some flew out of our really pretty 5-foot fence. Some of them were kind of mean, chased her around the farm. So we quickly kind of culled them. By culling them, we sold them to other people or gave them away, depending on the situation. And we got birds that we kind of liked and were pretty friendly. Don't ask me what the breeds are that we ended up keeping, but because birds, layers, typically, once they're in their first year of egg laying, lay roughly 1 egg per day. In year 2, it's like every other day. Year 3, it's like a couple of times a week, something like that. We decided that when we did a complete reset for this year of our layers, again, our last batch of 8 or so, she sold to a neighbor down the road. We decided to go with all one breed so that we could track the year. So as we get more birds next year or the year after or something like that, we know easily, just based on the color of the bird and the breed, when it's time to maybe potentially move on from them. Again, finding another home for them or something else. So we set up this brooder. This is an old pear crate or apple type crate from Wenatchee. Friends of ours, they're actually customers of ours that buy pork and beef, gave us a bunch of pears from a cool orchard in Wenatchee that we gave to our pigs this last year, and they were delicious, the pigs. And so we turned it into our brooder. Dominica decided it was the right height, added the cardboard and some of the pine shavings, the classic setup for the brooder, a couple of heat lamps to keep these chicks warm, water that we clean pretty much every day. In the blue tray is grit. It's essentially like broken up pebbles, and they will chew them on their own, and it helps them digest. As Dominica likes to say, it's like a coffee grinder. It takes the big granules of food and it breaks it down so that they can digest it just a little bit easier. In fact, when you butcher a chicken in their gizzard, you usually find some grit. You find some sand and rock type particles that they will have collected over the years and so forth. So they have a little starter grit. And then we set up, some of our YouTube folks that we follow suggested this idea of putting it up on a but a bread or cookie cooling rack. And so we set the feed trays up above that so that they can not, do their thing in the food as easily. We've learned that, of course, the hard way. Every few days we add a little bit more pine shavings because they zip around and they, do their business here. We add more to it. And the reason that we're doing the cardboard and the pine shavings is when we're done, after about 3 or so weeks and they're ready to move into our Alumi-Coops outside, because their feathers will have come in, we'll be able to turn all this into compost. It'll be literally in our garden by the end of the year. That's pretty awesome. So you have this beautiful chicken manure, plus the pine shavings, plus cardboard that will break down easily, and we'll have that all into our compost, into our garden. This is exciting. And the same process, by the way, is what we'll do with the meat birds. They'll be in a brooder for 3 or so weeks. They'll go outside, and then they'll live to about 8 weeks old, and then they'll be ready to have their one bad day, and then we'll be able to put them in the freezer, sell them to our customers, and so on. One thing I do want to say about our program this year for 2025 is that all of our meat birds are going to be processed processed by a USDA processor that includes our turkeys. You know, we've done it for a few years. We're okay at it. We're not awesome at it. My son is shaking his head in the corner, but because we're not that great at it. So we're going to have the USDA folks do it. They'll come all shrink wrapped like you'd recognize, excuse me. It'll also allow us to sell legally and otherwise the livers and the hearts and the gizzards and the feet. So a lot of people like that, not just culturally, but it adds a lot of flavor to a lot of different dishes and so forth. So it'll be a more economical way to process these chickens, a little bit more complete and less wasteful and those types of things, and all within the legalities of our beautiful state of Washington.